Going on. Still need a little bit more coffee in here. It's almost late this morning. I got distracted. I was rearranging my podcast feed. Not for the show, but for the one that I listen to. Come on, change it. Here we go. In 3, 2, 1. Good morning, everybody. Welcome. Today is Tuesday, April 6th, 2021. My name is Jeremy, and this is my first cup of coffee. Yeah, that came out good. Good cup of coffee this morning. We've had a number of suggestions over the years from fans, whatever, viewers, listeners, to have our own line of coffee. And I've looked into it. Now, one of the things I've learned, especially given the pandemic, is that buying, inventory, fulfillment, all that stuff, it's not something I want to do. It's something I'm willing to do with what we already have, but to buy new product, we don't have the scale at this point for that to be the best use of my time. But I found a company that will put our label on coffee and pack it and ship it and do all that, bag by bag. But it ended up being kind of expensive. It was like $20 a pound for us to even, I think, break even. I don't really want to sell people what is probably going to be inferior coffee for $20 a pound when you can go get really, really good coffee for 15. I mean, heck, what's Jamaican Blue Mountain? Last I knew it was like 25. It's like the best coffee. You ever had Jamaican Blue Mountain? Ooh, that's good. I still have a little bit in my freezer, a little bit of coffee from when I went to Galapagos. That coffee's amazing. So good. And even though it's been in there for years, it's still pretty amazing. Once in a while, I'll make a cup. Like it's morning celebration. Like if I'm celebrating something. It's been a while since a stupid fly. There's like 2 of them. There's one in here and one in my office. That one was driving me nuts yesterday on a Zoom call. Got a bunch of calls today. Recording 3 guest episodes. Got a meeting with Justin from Marshall Journal. And Andrew and I are recording. I don't know how many episodes Andrew and I are recording, but it is a recording day. Holy cow. Oh, man. Did you guys check out that episode yesterday? Gene Kanakogi? Man. One of my favorite episodes we've ever done. She was great. Conversation was great. Lots of fun. Lots of fun. These things, Invisalign things. I'm already excited to never have to wear them again. It's going to be a while. Stacy says, busy bee. Yeah, it's a busy day. I need to keep busy right now. Especially right now. Yeah, what happened yesterday? Went to the gym. Played some video games. Worked on some projects around here. Did a bunch of work for clients. Planned out some stuff for later in the week. I was supposed to have Thursday for, I was working on an all-day project for a client, but that got pushed back, so my week just opened up. Yay! Pardon me. I didn't work on these shelves at all. We'll figure it out. I'm going to turn this place into a whiskey bar. For me. My own whiskey bar. Why not? Why not? What more is there to say? Funny story. So I mentioned that the gym that I go to has a dog. The dog's great. I love the dog. He's probably like 65 pounds. Reasonable sized dog. Kind of dopey, but very sweet. And as I was leaving, he wanted to go outside and play, so he followed me out. Threw a stick for him a couple times. Then he brought it back and he put it on the ground and he looks at me and he pees on it. Like just lifts his leg right on the stick, stares at me while he does it. I was like, dude, I'm not throwing that stick down. Not gonna happen. It's like, what the hell? Come on, dog. Got a new Patreon subscriber yesterday. That was pretty cool. When people subscribe, I always send them a personal email, so that'll go out today and say, hey, thanks for doing this. Appreciate it. It helps. Every little bit helps. I wish we had a business model where I didn't have to do so much of this other stuff. I wish it was really just the podcast and maybe this show. This is the fun stuff. And we'd give 80% of it away for free, and then the extra 20 would be for Patreon subscribers. That would be the best business model, but we're not there. So we diversify. I don't know why coffee is making me burp this morning. I slept reasonably well. Hope you did too. Yeah, let's see what you guys gave me to talk about. Questions and comments and feedbacks, oh my. And you can drop those in the comment section below once the show closes. And looks like we got some stuff from Frank. I don't know why we're picking up spam again lately. It's weird, it goes in cycles. You know, we'll have 6 months where there's nothing, and then every day somehow we get targeted, and it's all these stupid short links. You know, little bit.ly links and whatever. People, I don't know who's clicking on these in 2021, but I don't think anybody is. I remove them as soon as I see them. Today is New Beer's Eve. Sweet! I'm not really sure what that means, but as long as we get to celebrate by having a beer. So I plan to probably have a beer later. I like beer. It's one of the things that I've missed the most about the pandemic is going out and having a drink with friends. I didn't do it that often, but it was still a nice thing to do. It's, you know, one of the things that's tough socially in Western culture as an adult is establishing new friendships. We need, especially as men, seem to need an excuse. Hey, you want to go do this thing, or do you want to come help me with this thing? We can't just say, hey, you want to come over? Women seem to do fine with that. If I was to ask a guy friend, you want to come over? And it was someone I didn't know well, that would be received oddly. I don't make the social conventions. It's just what it is. But as I'm getting to know someone better, hey, let's go grab a drink. That's like the mildest way. That's the easiest way you can do that because you're not inviting someone over. But pandemic-wise, we don't really quite, I mean, we're starting to get there here in Vermont. But I can't just say, hey, I'll meet you over at that bar or that brewery. There's a lot more logistical stuff that goes into it, and thus you got to plan ahead. It's not the same. It's just not the same. And asking people I don't really know, hey, you want to come drink at my house? That's weird too. You want to come to the whiskey bar in my living room? That's weird. But anyway, New Beer's Eve. Give me a woman who loves beer and I will conquer the world. Wilhelm II. These are 4 great quotes. I can already see by the names. I've dated women in recovery. I've dated women who like to drink. I've dated women who probably drink too much. I don't know what else to say to that. I'm not sure why a love of beer was so important back then for him, but hey, whatever works for you. Give me, give my people plenty of beer, good beer, and cheap beer, and you will have no revolution among them. Queen Victoria. Oh, there's something to that, right? Placating the masses, giving people something to, let's say, dull the pain of life. There are people who speculate that that's the purpose of a lot of our entertainment, of television. Maybe it is. I don't know. I certainly have observed plenty of people who use beer, alcohol, to dull the senses, to distance themselves from life. If caffeine is the most abused drug in society, alcohol is probably second. Unless you consider food. Some people consider food in that way. But there are quite a few people. Let's have a beer after work. I'm going to have a beer after work. Once work is finished, I get to have a beer. I've said those words before. I'm not going to lie. For me, there's ceremony to it. Just as there's ceremony to having coffee in the morning. There have been periods of time where I don't drink coffee. And, as long as I put something warm in a mug, a cup of tea, it's fine. I get used to that routine. And I've tricked myself, I've done it the last few years. I will probably do it again this year, the month before my birthday. I don't drink. And, we'll see if I do it again this year. I may or may not. But what I found that makes that easier is seltzer in a pint glass, or drinking from a can or a bottle, right? Something that kind of mimics, again, the ceremony, having a beer. And none of my friends are pushy in that way. I don't keep friends who would do that. Nope, I'm just taking a break. They're like, oh, that's cool. But I do really like beer. Vermont, we make amazing beer. Everywhere says that. If you do your research, you know what I'm talking about. Give a man a fish and he will eat for a day. Teach him how to fish and he will sit in a boat and drink beer all day. George Carlin. Not a big fan of fishing. I had some unfortunate incidents in my teens with the hook catching the fish in places that were not their mouth. And I won't be more descriptive than that because it's kind of gross. That's why I stopped fishing. Because it seemed wrong. And I eat fish. If I had to, I would fish. But, I'd rather just sit in the boat with or without the beer. I like being out on the water. Gotta wear a hat though, because this thing, the top of my head here without the hair, soaks up all that sun. Stacy says, to quote Homer Simpson, beer. For her, it's birch beer. Yeah, we've got, there's a cool company in Vermont called SAP that produces some maple products, and they have a birch seltzer. I've still got another week, maybe 2, of maple season, and then I move on to tapping the birch trees, which last year led to a very small amount of syrup that I overcooked and turned into caramel. So I have a very, very small amount of birch bark caramel that in a year, I didn't use all of it. It's a really unique flavor. It's good, but it's a very interesting flavor that doesn't work on everything, and it's not something you want to use much of or often. It's, how would I describe it? It's good. We'll just leave it at that. I didn't tap maple trees last year, but I pulled another quart off the big tree yesterday, threw that in the bucket, well, in the crock pot. Probably start cooking that again later today. Oh, you know what else I did? Oh man, for dinner, I made a burger and toasted the bread, a salmon burger, and somehow when I turned off the toaster oven, it went beyond off to on. This is the second time in like 2 weeks this has happened, and it just stayed on all night. I went to feed the cat and I was like, what is this heat radiating over here? Oh, it's a really inefficient electric heater that I've been running for 8 hours. Great, 10 hours. So I have unplugged it, and I think I'm gonna get a new toaster oven because that's crazy. Really have no need for setting my house on fire with a toaster oven. It is old. How old is that thing? 15 years? It's at least 10 years. I think 15 years. It's been a while. Always do sober what you said you'd do drunk. That will teach you to keep your mouth shut. Ernest Hemingway. And if you know anything, you know that Ernest Hemingway knows what he's talking about being drunk. Hemingway was a notorious drunk. Most writers seem to have struggled with something. I don't know if that applies to me. I don't know if I can call myself a writer just because I've written. Yeah. The silly things that people come up with when they're drunk. You ever wake up, as you might imagine, many of my ideas are around work and business, whether for client stuff or whistlekick stuff, martial arts stuff. And I have paper all over the place. And will leave myself notes, if I have a couple beers, especially on weekends. If I'm, maybe having a couple more and feeling good and my mind starts going silly places, sometimes some weird ideas come out. I write them down, and sometimes I wake up in the morning and say, I don't know where your head was at, Jeremy. That's not a good idea at all. What were you thinking? I listened to a podcast maybe 6-12 months ago talking about altered states and how we tend to think of this as being a human experience. But there are quite a few examples in the animal kingdom of animals altering state. Birds knowingly eating fermented berries and basically getting drunk. Various other what is it? Monkeys. You know how they have there are some of those toads or frogs that are mildly toxic and cause hallucinations. There are, I think it's monkeys that will lick them and get high and trip out on frogs. It happens. There's something about altering states that is part of evolution, and I find that absolutely fascinating. And there are experts who have made the case that not only is that part of evolution, that has furthered evolution. And maybe it's because birds come up with silly ideas. I have no idea. Or maybe it was just us. It helped further our evolution. I'm far from an expert on the subject, but I do find it fascinating. And we've pushed towards that for so long. We think about the drugs that we use in modern society, including the horrible illegal, like the really rough ones that, take something like heroin that has really destroyed a lot of lives. Heroin's been used for a long time. Opiates. been around a long time. This is not a new phenomenon, but I think a lot of us think of it as such. I don't do heroin. I don't do drugs. Maybe a lot of caffeine, alcohol, mostly caffeine. Let me wrap up the show, and then I'm going to share something that needs to be shared. But I'm gonna close the show very shortly after, because I don't know how I'm going to respond to it. It's big stuff, and you all deserve to know. All right, so if you want to leave stuff for me to talk about, you drop it in the comment section after the show closes, and I'll talk about it tomorrow. We do this show every weekday, 6:30 a.m. U.S. Eastern Time here on YouTube, but you can catch it later in audio form, usually a little bit of a delay, a few days. Shout out to Frank, as always, for making sure I have stuff to talk about, but also for being the producer on the show and taking care of a bunch of stuff on the back end that allows me to focus on what I do with this, other things. And if you want to support the work that we do at Whistlekick, you've got a bunch of things you can do. The two easiest: make a purchase at whistlekick.com using the code FIRSTCUT15 to save 15% off a training program or a shirt or whatever, or join the Patreon, patreon.com/whistlekick, and you get exclusive access to other stuff, additional content that we don't put out anywhere else. It is original content. It's also the only place to find out who's coming, who upcoming guests, the names of upcoming guests on Martial Arts Radio. Okay. My apologies in advance if I start to break down. My father passed away on Sunday. I got a call on Sunday, it was about noon. He'd been living in Ireland for years. I hadn't seen him in a long time. We had a complex relationship, but he was my father. And he's gone. And I've been struggling with that. So there it is. This is the first time I've been able to actually say that in words and not fall apart. So I'm making some progress here. I felt everyone deserved to know, because I share what's going on in my life pretty openly. And I also was very aware that yesterday's show was not where I wanted it to be. And I'll be honest, it's going to be a little while. I was just digging out from other stuff that had happened a couple months ago, and I was starting to feel like myself again. And then this happens. I've thought about taking a break from certain things, but knowing my personality, I need the distraction. So you continue to get me. I will be posting something on my personal social media about this later today. A number of you have been very supportive. Some people that watch or listen to the show already knew. And I want to thank everyone for their kindness and their compassion. So there you go. Thank you, everyone. Good morning. Daniel coming in at the end. Thank you, John, for your condolences. Stacy says break down if you need to. Not something I'm going to be comfortable with. I make funny, weird noises when I cry. Some people cry in a normal. I do not cry in a normal way. It's kind of weird. My crying, my version of crying is like, it's the equivalent of laughing to when people snort when they laugh. It's that. It's weird. It's awkward. It's not something I'm willing to share. And she says, love to you. I know what that's like, losing a parent with complicated relationships. Thank you. All right, everybody. Thanks for watching. Sorry to bring the show down at the end, but gotta say what you gotta say. I'll see you back here tomorrow. Take care. Peace.